Here in the Midwest, it's common for every homestead, farm, or country property to have their own patch of rhubarb. And I'm going to show you 4 different ways to freeze it. I'll show you how to make my brown sugar roasted rhubarb. I'd love to eat this on yogurt in the wintertime. Of course, you can't beat the combination of rhubarb and strawberries. So we're going to make a strawberry rhubarb sauce that has a hint of orange and tastes almost tropical. Another sauce that freezes exceptionally well. And then we'll take that strawberry rhubarb sauce and turn it into creamy freezer pops. We'll also go through the very simple process of cutting and freezing rhubarb plain for using later in pies, cakes, and sauces. If you're new to harvesting rhubarb, remember to pull it, not cut it. It should come out with this bottom flower petal looking piece. You can harvest rhubarb at any size and color, and depending on the variety, yours might be more green or more red. I love the red ones because they add such a beautiful color to whatever you're making, but my greener varieties tend to be more productive. And depending on the age, you might have thinner stalks or thicker stalks or a mixture of both. I always just try to pick them from areas that look most crowded in the plant, or I try to pick any that are on the outside and starting to fall over or lay closer to the ground. Make sure to cut off and discard the green leaves because those are poisonous and not edible. Brown sugar roasted rhubarb is up first, and this just might be my favorite rhubarb preparation because it feels old-fashioned or rustic or like something you'd be served at a quaint farm in the Italian countryside. To clean up the rhubarb, you can rinse it or wipe it with a damp cloth to remove any dirt or grass. Do cut off the very bottom end, but don't peel the rhubarb. I know there's some confusion around this, and your grandpa might have told you to peel it, but the peel is where all the beautiful color is and also where a lot of the flavor is. If your personal preference is to peel it, it will still work with these recipes though. For this recipe, the rhubarb is cut into about 1-inch pieces, and it's okay if some of the stalks are thicker than the others. I've got some real thick ones in here, and I'm actually going to cut those just a tad shorter because they are so big. You'll need 8 cups of rhubarb pieces, and there's a link for all the full written recipes for everything I'm making today, and you can find that in the video description below. Get all the rhubarb into a mixing bowl, and then we're adding brown sugar. Rhubarb does need sugar to balance its tartness. It gets a pinch of salt, and seeds from a vanilla bean or vanilla bean paste if you're fancy, and I'm fancy. Or you can use vanilla extract, but I love the way the little vanilla specks look with the rhubarb in this. Toss it all together and let it sit to macerate for about 15 minutes. And this will help get the juices starting to flow, which will help it cook in the oven and not just dry out. Once it's looking a little juicy, pour it into a 9-inch or similar baking pan and cook it uncovered until it's tender and swimming in a lovely sauce, which will take about 45 minutes. Isn't that so beautiful? Rhubarb is such an underrated, beautiful vegetable or fruit. I can argue it either way. I think it's botanically a vegetable, but legally a fruit. I love how this rhubarb holds its shape. It has a really unique texture and mouthfeel that is simultaneously both firm and slightly dense, yet soft. And it's swimming in a sweet vanilla bean speckled sauce. It's really good. Once it cools, I spoon it into freezer containers. Just be gentle when scooping it so you don't break up these delightfully whole pieces. Otherwise, you'll lose its unique texture. And you've probably seen me use these containers before. They're perfect for anything saucy like this. And I'm using the 8-ounce size here. These containers do a great job of preventing freezer burn. They come in lots of sizes and they're reusable forever. I'll link them below. Because this recipe is saucy, it does pack best in a rigid container as opposed to a freezer bag. When freezing, make sure to fill the container to the top while leaving a teeny bit of headspace for expansion. Never freeze a container that is only half full or partially full because that's a surefire way to get freezer burn. This roasted rhubarb is one of my absolute favorite things to eat on a bowl of yogurt. Doesn't that look so delicious? I actually can't tell if it's incredibly rustic or incredibly fancy. What do you guys think? Next up is strawberry rhubarb sauce. And it seems to me that fruit sauces often focus on late season fall fruits like apples and pears, but this very sunny combination of strawberries and rhubarb is deserving of a little freezer space. For this recipe, Cut the strawberries in half if they're medium-sized, and in quarters if they're large, or if they're super jumbo size like some of these ones, I'm cutting them into sixths. And you'll need 8 cups of cut strawberries. The rhubarb for this recipe is a little bit smaller than the last recipe, into about 1/2-inch pieces, and you'll use 4 cups. This is my favorite ratio, but it's very forgiving and you can definitely play around with it. You can make it a rhubarb strawberry sauce with more rhubarb than strawberries, if you want, instead of a strawberry rhubarb sauce. Pour both fruits into a large pot, and then I like to add just a little bit of orange zest, which enhances the flavor of both fruits and gives it an almost tropical note that is so good. I also add a little bit of the freshly squeezed orange juice as well. This will help get things cooking once we turn on the heat. To sweeten it, I'm using honey for this recipe because I love the floral note that it adds, but cane sugar also works great. And you can adjust the sweetness level, and I would encourage you to do that. As written, it's mildly, just barely sweet, so feel free to add more to your taste before or even after it's done cooking. And now over to the stove. Just like making an applesauce, this is cooked in a pot over the stove until it softens and thickens. I like to cook this sauce fairly gently so that the bright flavor of the strawberries doesn't get totally cooked away. As it heats, the strawberries and rhubarb will release some juices, and the pieces will start to sink down into them. And once this happens and it's starting to boil around the edges, simmer it gently for about 5 to 8 minutes until the fruit is just soft. Remove the pot from the heat, and then I like to give the fruit a light smashing to break it up a little bit more. I don't want it pureed, but I don't want it too chunky either. As it cools, the red color will deepen. This turns into such a gorgeous sauce. It's bright and flavorful, and putting this sauce in the freezer totally feels like capturing summer. I let it chill overnight in the fridge before spooning it into freezer containers. For my small family of 2, this 2-cup container size works best for us. This is a great sauce to just eat plain as it is, but I also love to bake it into muffins or use it to make freezer pops. This is a really fun recipe and a great way to use this strawberry rhubarb sauce. You just need the sauce, plus some lightly sweetened vanilla yogurt. I like Greek yogurt because it's thicker and I like the extra protein. And this is one of those recipes where there's really no right or wrong way to do it, but I like to start with a scoop of sauce and then a spoonful of yogurt, and then a scoop of sauce, a spoonful of yogurt, you get the idea. And then I take a butter knife and I lightly swirl it around just a little bit to create some fun swoops and swirls and mesh all the layers together. Don't forget the sticks, of course, and if you don't like yogurt, you can also just freeze the sauce by itself as a popsicle, or you can swirl in a little bit of sweetened heavy cream or sweetened canned coconut milk. These freeze overnight, and then you have a really delicious, refreshing, homemade treat for the hot summer days ahead. And if you don't have popsicle molds, you can use little Dixie cups and wooden popsicle sticks. If you're wondering if you can freeze plain rhubarb, yes, absolutely. You do not need to cook it or blanch it, and there are 2 good freezing options. You can cut it into pieces. I like about 1 inch because that's a common size, and pack it raw and fresh into freezer bags like this. Remove the air from the bag and then freeze it. Of course, you'll need to thaw the entire package in order to use it, so this is most useful if you're freezing it to make something like sauce later. Option 2 is to flash freeze it. Do this by putting the pieces on a parchment-lined pan and freeze them overnight. They'll come out frozen in individual pieces, which is helpful if you want to grab out a handful at a time for something. This is also the most convenient way to freeze rhubarb if you plan on making it into a pie later, since I think it's best made into pie filling while it's still partially frozen. Once the pieces are frozen solid, quickly load them into a freezer bag and get them back into the freezer as fast as you can. And whichever method you choose, if you're freezing it for a specific recipe, freeze it in whatever quantity the recipe calls for, and make sure to write on the bag how many cups it is because it will be harder to measure later. You'll thank yourself, trust me. If you don't have a rhubarb patch of your own, I'd highly recommend it. They're very easy to start and maintain, and they're one of the first foods that appear for us in the spring right along with asparagus. I love freezing our fresh produce in useful, interesting ways, and if you do too, you will love my book, Freeze Fresh. It walks you through how to freeze and then use 55 different fruits and veggies. I'll link it below. As always, let me know if you have any questions, and if you found this video helpful, I would love it if you could give it a thumbs up, and make sure to subscribe to my channel so that you are the first to know whenever a new video is posted.